It was Bimei Matisyahu, during the days of Rav Matisyahu Salomon, Zechrona Levracha, that we had clarity and that we had a leader. The Torah and Mussar had one unified voice. But now he has been taken from us. Harav Matisyahu Chaim Ben Etel passed away last week at the age of 86. And now, after hearing many of the different Chachmei Hadar give hespedim and eulogies, vignettes, and memories of the life and legacy of the great Mashgiach of Matisyahu Salomon, Zechrona Levracha, I'd like to summarize some of the points that I heard, give an overarching theme of his life, of what he lived for, and to attempt to fulfill the mitzvah that is giving a eulogy. I proceed with a great amount of concern and care in trying to fulfill this mitzvah of giving a eulogy. For it's brought in Shulchan Aruch that mitzvah gedola, it is a great mitzvah lahaspid al hames, to give a eulogy about the dead. Karoi, properly. Umitzvaso, and how is it done? Shiyarim kolo, to raise up your voice. Loimar alav devarim hameshaber mesalev, to speak words that break the heart of the listeners. K'dei laharbos, in order to increase bechia, the crying. Ulahazker shevacho, and to mention the praise of the deceased. It's also noted the intense and shocking, truthfully, punishment that lies waiting for someone that doesn't do the mitzvah properly. So here, I'd like to make it known that it's just an attempt to be mazkir the shvach, to give over the praises as best as possible of the great Rav Matisyahu Chaim Ben Etel. Now, he was born in London. A bit of a background of his life and where he came from to give some outline of just how much he accomplished. He was born in London to his parents, Reb Yaakov and Rebbetzin Etel. He grew up in London before his family moved to Gateshead in the early 1940s, where he really started to flourish, to a tzaddik. A famous chavrusashaft was had between him and Reb Chaim Kaufman, a future big-time Talmud Chacham and Rosh Yeshiva. 16 years. They learned together through Yeshiva and through Kollel. And then the Mashgiach met his Mashgiach, his Rebbe Muvak, his role model, the great Reb Elia Lapian, who he studied by for actually not even a full year. And Rav Matisyahu would still refer to Reb Elia Lapian as his Rebbe Muvak, his main teacher. And this was an impactful meeting and connection made between Rav Matisyahu and Reb Elia Lapian, because Reb Elia Lapian was a Talmud of the famed Kelm Talmud Torah. He was a student of the great Reb Simcha Zisel Ziv Broida, the Alter of Kelm. and the Chachma and the Mussar ideologies and philosophies of Kelm were handed over and taught to Rav Matisyahu during this year. These are many of the seeds of the drushos, the discourses that he would give in his future. His first stellar was when he was a Mashgiach of the Gateshead Yeshiva. He worked underneath Rav Moshe Schwab before taking over and becoming the main spiritual dean of the Gateshead Yeshiva. And this was for 30 years. He was the crown jewel of England. He was someone that made American Talmidei Chachamim say that Torah is Ever Layam. It is across the water. Because they had Rav Matisyahu Salomon. They had clarity. And they had a giant among them. Then, in 1997, the great Rav Rachfogel, the Mashgiach of BMG, invited and brought Rav Matisyahu to be the Mashgiach Ruchani of Beis Medrash Govoha BMG, the famous yeshiva here in Lakewood, boasting thousands of students, brilliant young light, a place where the walls drip. The perspiration on the walls is fear of heaven. And that is where he really became a living legend. His wife, during all of these years, by his side, a Heilige Rebbitzin Miriam. She was actually a descendant of the Pnei Yeshua. She passed away in 2016, many remember. And now, Rav Matisyahu, he passed away last week. He has been buried in Yerushalayim's Har HaMenucha cemetery. And his Svarim that continue to live on are titled Matnas Chaim, the gift of life. They truly are vaccinations. And they are the typed up, edited, Mussar Shmuzin discourses that he gave throughout his life, most specifically in BMG. There's also some English books about his chinuch philosophies, titled With Hearts Full of Love. But I'd like to touch on a couple of his unique qualities. To be mazkir shevacho, to mention his praise. And the first thing that comes to mind that the great rabbis, the Chachmei Adar, spoke about him was exactly that. Ulahazkir shevacho, that he would constantly mention others' praise. He had a way with words. He was an expert, brilliant orator, an exquisite conversationalist. It really is no wonder why his messages continue to stick. Why everyone who goes to his shmuzin, went to his shmuzin, would feel like they left with a goodie bag to take away, to take with them, full of Yer Shemayim. He would find ways to be mazkir shevacho, no matter who the person was. He was deeply connected and felt a real intimate connection with almanos and yesomim. He was there for all of the widows and the fatherless. He would jokingly give his business card. Call me anytime. This imaginary business card saying, I'm here whenever you need me. If you need to talk, like to think through a topic again. And his drasha. Oh, his drashas. They're what made him what he is most notably remembered for. It is not even the slightest wonder why they are so legendary and epic. His preparation for his vadim were unrivaled. His message was always uniquely tailor-made for the audience with a masterful audience awareness. He really lived with this chinuch lanar al pi darko to educate the youth on his path. So the message was always given in a way that could be internalized and heard by that unique and specific audience. The great Rav Lezevnik of Presidential Estates Shul here in Lakewood once told a story how he was inside of the Solomon home when a group of boys on their graduation trip came to visit Lakewood, and now they were here to hear some words of inspiration. He welcomed the boys in, asked them their names, brought them into his study, and he continued to give a drasha about the importance of parnasa and knowing that we do our part, but really everything comes directly from Hashem. And the idea of emuna and parnasa. And Rabbi Lezevnik said this story. He mentioned that he had just finished a vad, the Mashgiach did, talking about maybe a higher level, something, a very intense idea for the vad that he was giving. And when he stopped to give over to the Bachrim, to these young students on their graduation trip, understanding that these students came from this background, Balabatish homes where they would eventually be doctors and lawyers and dentists and accountants. Well, this would be the message that they could take and do something with it. A brilliant chinuch lanar al pi darko. So it is not the slightest wonder that we still reference the Matnas Chaim for so many foundational talks. It really dovetails nicely to mention, while he was so involved in the klal and being there for all the different rungs in society, the happy, the sad, the broken hearted, and the full-hearted. One great giant mentioned how Rav Matisyahu had a beautiful warmth in his home, and while often leaders of large organizations, leaders, public figures in the public eye tend to be busy, not always at home, somehow Rav Matisyahu was a brilliant parent, a brilliant, constantly present spouse, a dad, a husband, which is, hopefully we understand, not a small accomplishment. Rav Matisyahu made tremendous strides. Really, truthfully, he started a revolution in the entire way that he taught Mussar. The way that he brought Mussar from Kelm to Reb Lapian to Rav Matisyahu here to now BMG. He had brilliant tact in the way that he was able to, in a way, repackage the Mussar shmooze. See, people in Lakewood or Talmidei Chachamim that are normally learning Gemara, the back and forth, the pilpul is a big deal. The sugya, how does this passage of Talmud mesh with the other one? Splitting hairs, thinking through. So Rav Matisyahu kind of enjoined that with Mussar. He had a way of not just giving a vad and speaking the concept out, but by taking the Talmud Bavli that he had perfect, flawless control over, and bringing out the Mussar ideas in a very brilliant sheer style. Akasha here, Rashi says this. If Rashi says this here, we can ask a question, does this work with the Ramban? And then using a Mussar idea to answer up in a Gemara sheer a certain pilpul style. With this finesse, he was able to whip up the emotions and have his message land. It's not a small wonder that his Monday Vad, Rabbi Haber mentioned, the great Rav, that there was more than 1,000 people that would show up. He had the prophecy and the chachma of Moshe, and he didn't need the orator, the maturgamon, his spokesperson of Aaron. He was able to play the role of Moshe and Aaron in this dar, to have the chachma and to deliver it in a way that anyone can understand it. Woe to us that we lost the Mashgiach. He really was the elected official for the Torah world, with so many different people as running mates or vying to be the elected candidate. It was unquestioned. It was Rav Matisyahu. What he said was the final word. His words carried weight. One of the notches in the great legacy of Rav Matisyahu Zechariah Livracha was that 60,000 person rendezvous at Citi Field Ballpark to educate, inform, and inspire the Torah world about the dangers of poor, unfiltered internet use and the dangers that lurk ahead. Insiders tell how this gathering was what actually sapped the energy and killed the Mashgiach. For he has really not been well since then, in 2016 when it happened. Some even report that the Mashgiach knew the toll that this maimed, this gathering, may take on his health, because it was starting up and taking a stance against the Yetzer Hara, the evil Satan, and the attempts to spread the internet in a real serious way. Something that can be very detrimental to one's health. But yet, undeterred and adamant about it, he brought this gathering to fruition. Citi Field actually called to cancel the event when they saw that no women were allowed to come. It was discriminatory. 2 days before, more issues, pushback from other rabbinic forces, but he was adamant about it. And you can still go and listen to the talks, all the drushas given by all the rebbes, mashgichim, rashi yeshivos, and how right Rav Matisyahu was about the gathering, and how telling the drushos were, and how it actually was the launch of all the different organizations that are today what save so many hopeful neshamos from falling deep into the abyss of issues with the internet. Rav Matisyahu was stubborn and adamant in his Yiddishkeit. He personified this naftuli elikim niftalti mida. I guess no one who reaches the heights that he reached can get there without a certain amount of stick-to-itiveness and determination. Rav Matisyahu learned Mussar Sfarim, it should be noted, where every single letter was like Torah shebechsav. Every letter could be darshan thousands and bushels of halachos from. The Mesilas Yesharim, the Timer Devar, the Chayvas Halavavas, Rabbeinu Yaina on Avos, Mishle with the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, all of the different Mussar works, they were at his fingertips. And he learned them with the utmost care, concern, and caution to bring out the messages. He was a tzaddik. He was a chacham. He was a Talmud chacham. He was a chassid. He had epic self-control, epic simcha. He was noisei ba'oil chavero, related to everyone, and he had a way of imparting that message to the people and crowds that he spoke to. Oy, mehayalanu, how much have we lost? We lost the leader that can say iceberg dead ahead and steer us away from issues. Well, without him, it can feel like we're just drifting at sea, just hopeful we won't bump into any icebergs, but with no great eyes to look forward and steer us away. He was perhaps the last manifestation of a real Mashgiach. A Kel Mashgiach, a Reb Chatzkel Mashgiach, a Reb Yerucham Mashgiach, a Reb Lapyan Mashgiach, a Reb Dessler Mashgiach. He was the bridge to clarity, the bridge to Torah, the bridge to Mussar, the bridge to Emes. And now he is gone. We cannot knock on his door and ask for advice. We cannot go to his vadim. We cannot see him smile or dance with the beautiful neshamas that he would inspire. He wasn't well for the very last few years of his life. And one great Acharon suggested that may be because he fully brought to fruition all of his kaiches. As if his whole guf, all of his intellect, all of his capabilities and physical faculties in his human body were slowly breaking down because he had used them so greatly and manifested the potential and turned the potential into kinetic energy in such a fulfilled and perfect way that the body was almost useless anymore because of the amount of shleimus that he had accomplished. It was b'mei Matisyahu that we had clarity. It was b'mei Matisyahu that we had a leader. It was b'mei Matisyahu that Mussar was alive. It was b'mei Matisyahu that we had a visionary. It was b'mei Matisyahu that we had one voice. It was b'mei Matisyahu that we had Torah and Yira and Mussar in one individual. And now he is no longer. Oy, how much we have lost because of the death of the great Mashgiach, Rav Matisyahu Salomon, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha.